I had a conversation with a client yesterday, and we were doing some retirement planning, and I laid it out like, this is what we're going to shoot for your income in retirement. You should be good to go at that point. And she's like, okay, that sounds great. And I go, hey, by the way, this doesn't account for the fact if you get a raise next year.
Right.
And she kind of, oh, I guess that's right.
Welcome to Money Therapy, where every dollar tells a story. And most importantly, so do you. I've explored thousands of podcasts discussing tools, tricks, and hacks to grow wealth. But when they failed me, I started asking why. The answer was clear. For a different output, I needed different inputs. So I shifted my focus from mere tools to more deeper sense of self. I started focusing on my identity, beliefs, values, goals, and vision. Once these were aligned, the same tools that were failing me before started to work. Join us at the intersection of life and money, where you are the ultimate asset in generating wealth for your life. Let's master our money, not be mastered by it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and share for your weekly dose of money therapy, helping you turn wealth into a seamless part of your life's journey. Together, we're going to eliminate financial anxiety and hopelessness and gain confidence and clarity. Now, let's dive into today's episode of Money Therapy. Welcome to another episode of Money Therapy. We're super excited to get started. My name is Brandan Chasteen.
I'm Bill Magill. What's up, everybody?
I just realized I have a busted pin somewhere. That's fun. It's probably all over my pants. All right.
Or you pulled a fire alarm or something.
We're here. We're ready. And we're kicking off a really great show. Bill's dropping some wisdom on us.
Trying to. Most of the time people don't listen, so it's just, but it's like, I think it's great stuff.
This is really good. And the best thing, we were talking in show prep, and I really feel, and I shared this, I think so many people are going to relate to what we are about to talk about. This is relatable. Everybody could use a dose of this today. So that being said, listen, like, comment, subscribe, leave us messages, reach out, share it, do all those things. But let's jump in. Bill, I'm going to let you kick it off.
Yeah. So we're going to, the title, or one of the titles that could be this episode, is about the zero-sum game. I feel like, and I want to ask you first, like, when's the first time you think you heard of the zero-sum game, like on the news and stuff? Because that's what I first think of, is like hearing it on the news for the first time. Like, when do you think that came around? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, definitely in like a tagline kind of way, probably from some sort of media source. I honestly can't put a thumb on the first time I heard it, but I immediately, when you brought up the zero-sum game, I immediately knew
what I was talking about.
Yeah, I knew what you were talking about. But I don't know that I've ever used the term.
Yeah,
but I definitely have heard it. And I think honestly, I think I heard what came to mind was a news commentator talking about like the zero-sum game in some sort of transaction that was occurring in like the equity markets.
So that's kind of where I first heard it too. Is like, I remember hearing this, years ago, and when I was thinking about this episode, this memory popped up, and we're going to talk about probably why this memory sticks with me later on in the episode. But basically, I was getting coffee with a friend and a client, and we're sitting there having a coffee, and it's a beautiful sunny day. We're sitting outside and just talking, and this client loves to, he likes to bring up pretty much like everything that he hears on the news, and not that he believes everything at all, but he likes to have conversation about it. So like, when people were afraid that like the Russian, ruble was going to take over the US dollar, we had a discussion about that just because he likes talking about that stuff. But this hit me because in the middle of our conversation, he just said, like, I don't know, Bill, is it really just like this whole thing is just a zero-sum game? Like, does somebody always have to lose for others to get ahead? And it's like, sometimes somebody says something and you can like feel it in your chest, and for one reason or the other. And that hit me, and it hit me out of left field. I was like, where did that come from? Was kind of my initial reaction. And my initial, it sounded very, depressive and almost hopeless. And the way that my personality is, I'm very positive. So as soon as I heard that, I turned it into, a positive. I said, well, it can't be a zero sum game. We're sitting here enjoying coffee. This coffee shop provided a place for us to come and enjoy each other's company. Have some, like, personally, I love coffee. I love the taste of it, the smell of it. I love it for those reasons. So I enjoy a cup of coffee. There's Brandon with his cup. I love that cup of that mug, by the way. Can you show everybody the little army dude?
Yeah, let's see. It's a little green army man.
See, some people think we grow up, folks, but we really don't. We just put on better clothes, as you can tell. As you can see. So
can I stop? Before we get too far into this, I just want to ask you, like, can you, just for everyone, just in case somebody hasn't, or maybe they can't put words to it. Yeah. Can you define a zero sum game?
Yeah. So a zero sum game basically means that when there is a transaction of some sort, the amount transferred between maybe two people, you could think about it, is exactly the same. So an example of that might be, if you're playing poker, if Brandon and I are playing poker heads up, and, we have, I have $100 in front of me, all the money that I ever have, which is $100, and I lose it all to Brandon. Brandon gained $100 and I lost $100. So plus 100, if you take, negative 100 plus 100, that's zero. So it's a net zero is kind of the definition of that.
It almost implies like a predatory environment, right? Like, in order for me to succeed, I have to take it from you. Like, I have to, there's limited, finite stuff, whatever we're talking about. There's, limited $100 in this world. And in order for me to gain 100, I have to take yours.
Yeah. Or, and it almost has, and we're going to talk about this a little later, but it almost has an element of like involuntariness to it, and, so in your example, force,
I'm a victim.
This had to happen.
Right. Or if I'm successful, I had to destroy a bunch of people's lives to become successful.
Right. Exactly. So, I've thought about it for years, and I think it stuck with me because of the hopelessness and the depressive way that this person said it, who is not normally a depressive or, pessimistic person, by the way. But it really resonated in my brain of, okay, well, is there such thing as a zero sum game? Is there any truth to that? How can we look at this a different way?
I think this is why I said I think this will resonate with a lot of people, because I think even the most well-intentioned people that are, rather optimistic will have moments of like kind of pessimistic tendencies. Yeah. And this psychology speaks a ton to, I think, psychology says there's a lot of studies that will suggest the weight of a loss is infinitely heavier than the feeling of reward from a victory. Sure. And when we define or believe we have limited resources, when we accept the fact that I only have this capacity, then scarcity sets in. So all of a sudden, when somebody says, "Hey, this is going to cost $10," you're like, "Man, I just can't get ahead." Right? Yeah. And you're right. What you were implying there is the joy of a conversation, the joy of a cup of coffee, the present feeling of just like sitting in a coffee shop and watching the world come alive. Like all these things are invaluable. But the reality is the cost of a $3.50 cup of coffee is real, and it's immediate, and it hits and it hurts. And when we're already feeling pretty scarce or wound, like we can't get ahead, I think that's a very real thing.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely is. And, you know, I think, it's so hard for humans, including myself, to look forward and because our brains want to figure out what's in front of us right now.
Mhm.
From the caveman years, we've got to figure out what we're eating and doing today. Right.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's so ingrained in us that no matter what tricks or currency or, technology, like it's hard for us to get rid of that. So we see like, we have to see life as stagnant or static for a certain period of times for us to fix a problem. And
Yeah.
but while we're fixing that problem, I feel like it's hard for us to look down the road and realize, well, another reality could be, this another reality down the road could happen. I had a conversation with a client yesterday and we were doing some retirement planning and I laid it out like this is what we're going to shoot for your income and retirement. You should be good to go at that point. And she's like, okay, that sounds great. And I go, hey, by the way, this doesn't account for the fact if you get a raise next year.
Right.
And she kind of, well, I guess that's right. And it's like, yeah, so like this isn't all the money we're ever going to make ever, and it kind of snaps you out of it. And I think that's, a big key to this episode is how can we look further down the line on cause and effect? We talked about the butterfly effect a couple episodes ago. And there's just like, this is like my logic kind of went to there's infinite numbers of ways of looking at a situation.
Yeah.
And
I was gonna
yeah,
suggest like because you said something I think important that I want you to explain. And I think this will, if you explain this, it'll lead right into about what you're saying about like infinite ways to perceive or
yeah,
realize value. And that is like something important here is oftentimes when we see the zero sum game, we're looking at the transaction. So
yeah,
why don't you walk me into this moment of transaction that drove this client to say this? He gave you the example of the moment, and
yeah,
then talk about how you see it different because invaluable value, like
yeah,
an unlimited amount of value that you took away from this transaction.
yeah. So, when he said that, I can't remember what led up to him exactly saying that, but when he said the zero sum, is everything just really a zero sum thing? I shot back. I thought about it internally. I was like, okay, we're here at this coffee shop. I paid $10 for me and my client to both get coffee. So I'm down $10 and the coffee shop's up $10, right? That's
Yeah.
that's a zero sum game.
Yeah.
But then I went, but wait a minute, I got something for my coffee. Like I got something by being here, or else I wouldn't be here. Right. I
Right.
wouldn't have come if I didn't want to be here. So what did I get? Well, I love the taste of coffee. I love personally, I'm a very extrovert person. I love being out in public. I love watching the crowd go by, start their days. And most importantly, I'm there with a friend and my client. And we're talking about very important things for him and his wife and his kids. We are enjoying each other's company. That is worth way more than $10 to me. And for me, like being outside's the best. So it was like a beautiful sunny day too. So I'm like, dude, having a cup of coffee with a friend out in the sunshine, enjoying the morning, like that is awesome to me. I'd pay $100 for
The
that.
shirt
Oh,
you're wearing right now
yeah.
implies that you love being outside in the sunshine.
Is it a great shirt?
It's
I
a
love
great
this
shirt. It
shirt.
is. It's a good shirt.
my my wife before the podcast was like, "That's loud." I'm like, "Oh yeah." I'm like, "Yes, it is."
I love it.
So anyway, so that's worth way more, to $10 to me. And
Mhm.
then that brought into question value. I'm like, okay, so it comes down to value. But value, as we've talked about in the past, is completely subjective. People find value in all kinds of things. People
Yeah.
people still trade Pokemon cards, right?
Sure.
They find value in all kinds of things, and it's completely subjective. So, we spend most of our time describing value in dollar amounts and dollar signs and cents, but and you can look at it as I'm losing $10, coffee shop gaining 10, but there's a huge problem. Like people find value in millions of different things and at millions of different levels. Like somebody trading a Pokemon card is extremely important for them that day to get that trade. I really couldn't care less. I don't see the value in it, right? And that's okay. But so, in to jump back to our example, like some people hate coffee shops. They hate being in public. They hate, they don't like socializing too much
Right.
and all that stuff. So, if there's value in tons of different places, um, it can't. The value and the fact that value is subjective, and we'll talk about this too. It was a voluntary transaction. I showed up and decided I want to use my money to buy this cup of coffee to have this experience, if you will, because that's valuable to me. So if value is completely subjective and it's an involuntary transaction, which, as we talked about, zero sum kind of implies that it's a non-voluntary transaction in order for it to occur. Does zero sum even exist?
Right. You kind of you talked about the cost of the cup of coffee, the $10.
Yeah.
That was a focal point. And then you said, like, then you talked about the value of the experience. And I like how much of an immediate and overwhelmingly positive impact on our spending would occur if we started like thinking less about the dollars in the transaction and more about the joy and alignment with our purpose that occurs through transactions, right? Like everything that you're saying you got from that moment only cost you $10.
Yeah.
Right. And then, whatever coffee shop you were at, like, sucker, he just paid $10 for 25 cents of coffee. But you're like, and you're thinking, sucker, they just gave me this much joy for $10. Right. Now we went from a zero sum game to an infinitely positive sum game. Everybody feels like they're getting the upper hand. I think in the transaction, so in the show prep, you kind of wrote out a note, and I was like, I do want to go back and revisit the dollars, and I want to make a point in this world, in our economy. Nothing happens in a vacuum. This is important because if you're getting hung up on the cost of individual transactions, there's a lot of like psychology that suggests, I mean, it goes back to like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I think was like from the 70s. So this psychology has been around for a while. But the point is like, you can't start thinking about greater things until you know you're safe right now.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking, man, this is a zero sum game, this transaction, they just took my $10, it would tell me that you're probably not feeling safe right now. There's probably something really big going on that we should focus on, and not the $10 transaction. But I want to bear with me for like just a second here. Bill is a financial planner. Bill goes to a coffee shop with a client. He pays $10. The coffee shop's up 10, Bill's down 10.
Yeah.
He has conversations. He enjoys his day with another coffee aficionado, and questions come up. It's a financial question. He has the client like, oh, I have this vested stock in this company and I need to figure out what to do with it. Bill answers, goes through the process, gets the client the answer. The client ends up hiring him. So coffee shop plus 10, Bill down 10. Bill sells a financial planning agreement. Now he's up $3,990 from this transaction.
And 99
now
cents.
Bill has plenty of $10 bills to go to this coffee shop every day because it brings him so much joy. And that clerk that serves him, or that barista that serves him the coffee that's making, $17 an hour, since Bill has all these $10, 6 months goes by, the coffee shop's doing better, promotes the barista to manager. The manager now has benefits. The barista that has a kid at home who hasn't had benefits now can take her kid to the doctor's office. Kid goes to the doctor's office, gets the labs, gets the checkup, gets the physical, gets all these things. Thank God the kid's healthy. But what happens? The hospital sends codes to the insurance company, all those employees there are making their salaries. And then all of a sudden, the insurance company sends money back to the hospital, right? The hospital hits all their profitability marks. And guess what? All the execs get a new stock bonus. And the guy that originally hired Bill calls Bill back and says, hey, I work for the hospital. We just got another stock bonus and I need to figure out what to do with all of this stuff.
Yeah.
When we zoom out and realize that a $10 transaction is impacting an entire community around us, and it comes back to us ultimately. I was talking in show prep. There's a very hard truth, and it's very, very much so true. It's like it happens unknowingly in American culture, but it's very known, and people are aware of this in the Jewish communities and the Muslim communities. Is like, I won't say yes to making money from you unless I'm confident that 10 people around me in my community will also benefit and make money from this transaction as well.
Yeah. Right? I think that's beautiful. And I think I love your example. Your example is like a great macro example. That affects a community. And I think we have to get better at looking outside of ourselves in that way. And that, because my brain immediately goes to, your brain goes to the entire community is affected, which is awesome. My brain goes to, and again, this could be like an area of improvement for me, but my brain goes to just like, even between me and my client right there, this didn't happen. I'm making up a scenario here, but let's say my client said, yeah, well, hey, Bill, I've got, $20,000 in my bank account right now. And let's say that this was happening today. And I said, well, hey, instead of the bank account paying you 0.02% on your money, that's $40 a year, by the way. Why don't you put it in this money market? I'll open up a money market investment for you, and you'll get paid $1,000 for that money for your emergency fund, just sitting there. And yet, I'll charge a little bit for finding it for you and setting it all up for you. But now we've just made way more than $10 just between him and I, right? Yeah, so even in a little microcosm right there, like that's happening while my dollar is affecting and my tips are affecting the barista there. And it's, then I meet, the business owner there who's like, hey, I've got employees. I'd love to set up retirement for my employees. Okay, now those employees are putting money into those, and that's growing for retirement. And just like, I think I think sometimes people stop thinking down those types of lines of logic because I think they think it's unrealistic. And I want to challenge that, in that just because it feels good to think that way and it's viewed as, optimistic or positive doesn't make it wrong. Right. And at the same side, the pessimistic side of the coin, there might be some truth to that too.
Yeah,
but it's all about perspective.
There's an incredible company, really incredible leader, up in Pennsylvania. His company is Dunder Mifflin. Leader is Michael Scott, and he said a couple fantastic things. But one thing that jumps out is, he really
impact.
he was really adamant about creating win-win-win situations.
Okay.
And I'm going to take this a step further. I want you to give me the evidence, but I'm going to take it a step further, and I'm just going to say, hey, let's kill it. A zero-sum game does not exist.
Yeah.
So why? Like, how can we substantiate that?
Well, again, I think we've been doing that this whole episode. I mean, once you bring in the fact that, again, that value is completely subjective, right? If I can derive value from anywhere, well, that means that nothing can possibly be a zero-sum game because there's ripple effects to everything. Mm-hmm. Everybody's getting something in their decisions every day, and whether that involves money or not. And so I don't think there can be a zero-sum game. And I'm going to say something a little even more controversial. I kind of get to this in my thoughts here, but in the zero-sum game definition, it's like somebody is always losing for others to win. I don't think that's true either. I don't think it's true either. I think
Well, of course it's not, because we just killed it. There is no zero-sum game.
Yeah, I don't. Well, again, like I'm not sure that we all can't be winners in that scenario.
Exactly. And so
Depending, maybe it's your mindset. Maybe it's got nothing to do with, you know,
I love this
dollar amounts.
conversation, because there was a conversation we had, I don't remember, months ago, maybe.
Yeah. Was it a conversation or argument?
It was a little bit of an argument. That's why I love it, because you're actually proving me right in so many ways. And
Oh no.
The big thing we talked about was this notion that if you multiply what you have by a variable that is finite, you always have a finite outcome. But when I take something unlimited and multiply it by something unlimited, I then can have an unlimited outcome. And so what we're saying here, so many people, the scarcity thing comes into play because they think, oh, well, there's only so many. Like, how many hours, Bill, can you work today? How many hours could you possibly work today?
24 hours.
24 hours. So even if you wanted to, like, if you're saying, I want this unlimited thing to happen today, but I'm tying it to 24 hours, there is a maximum capacity. But
Sure.
if instead we start talking, instead of talking about the transactions in hours or dollars, we start saying, like, hey, I only care about how much value can you receive today?
Yeah.
How much can you? How much value can you receive today?
Well, again, it depends on what I value.
No. But how much could you possibly receive today?
Again, it depends on what
all
I
of it.
value
The answer is
and
all
what
of
I'm
it.
looking for.
As much as you want. You can receive
Yeah.
as much joy, as much value as you possibly want today. The
It's
reality is it is. It's unlimited. I mean, maybe you don't want all of it today. Maybe you want this much. Maybe you want that much, right?
Or maybe
But you
something bad
have
happens.
the ability to receive as much as you want,
Sure.
right?
Okay.
And you also have the ability to give as much value as you have an ability to give an unlimited amount of value to people who are wanting to receive the value that you have to offer.
Sure.
Because, right? So if I need financial advice or guidance or coaching or wisdom or a question answered, and it's everything. This is everything to me, and you have the answer.
Mhm.
That's unlimited value to me. You could give me unlimited value, and I could receive. That's so timely. I don't even know what I just did there.
I don't
That
know.
was really timely. But I could also receive unlimited value. Sorry, if you're only listening, I did something with my hands and fireworks went off right when I was getting pretty emotional. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
But
It's like it knows.
the point here, and I want to give a story, and I'll shut up and let you talk again in just a second. But value is the source of wealth. Wealth is always created; it's never taken. And I want to hear your arguments to that statement in a second, but let me prove my point first. Again, I'm going to say this. Wealth is always created. It's never taken. Okay. The story that I want you to think for a second while I talk, because I want you to try to argue that. Wealth is always created. It's never taken. Let's say that you go to,
taken or destroyed.
Wealth is always created. It's never taken. That's the statement.
Okay.
Let's say you go to Facebook Meta Marketplace, whatever they call it now, and you see this old car. It's $500. You go buy the rusty old classic. The seller unloads. The seller is unloading some junk. It's been taking up space. They unload it for $500, and you get a rusty old broken down car for $500, right?
Perfect.
You pay a few grand, call it 5,000, and for some new parts that a whole line of manufacturers had to produce. Some website had to list the parts. The delivery company had to ship the parts. The list goes on, right?
Sure.
How many jobs were required to provided for families because of your one $500 transaction? Now, you get the new parts in, car starts up, it's purring. This sounds great. Still a rust bucket though. So you hire a local company to come in, a local little dude that has like a, sandblasting machine and a paint shop. You're like, I want to help out the local small guy. But truth is, you just don't want to pay to ship your car somewhere. Whatever, it doesn't matter. He's going to finally, because of this decision, have his first profitable year in this small business that he started that has been driving his family insane. It's been a huge risk, right? You
Okay.
need new tires and wheels. That story, like it just goes on and on. But after all of it's done, you've spent about $15,000. How much did it cost? Like, did it cost anyone anything other than you spending 15 grand? Nobody else lost anything in this transaction. You lost 15 grand. But now you
Yeah.
have this car of your dreams. You're so proud of it. You drive it down to the local car show on a Saturday morning, and a guy walks up to you and he says, "You know what? I have $40,000 of cash right here. That's the car that I've wanted my entire life." Now you have $40,000. You just had a net profit swing of $25,000 that you
Hmm.
created.
Yeah.
You didn't steal it from anyone.
Yeah.
The guy has the car of his dreams. The old man that you bought this rust bucket from got that $500 that just so happened to pay for his grandson's last class in med school. Now he's going to be the first grandson to graduate in the family and go on to be the best surgeon in the world. Right?
Yeah.
Everything was created.
I love
Everything.
this world you live in, Brent. It's beautiful.
But that is how it works.
Yeah.
We just tend not to see it.
Well, and you
Sometimes we don't
forgot the
see it.
point. You forgot the fact that the guy who bought the car for 40,000 is a business worker, or he's a business owner, and he stole from all of his employees by not paying them enough, and then he paid for your car. So yeah, you supported all of them losing money.
He didn't
So
steal from him. He
congrats.
he bought it through the businesses. It was a tax write-off. The company was more profitable, so he gave everybody raises.
Well,
So
I
you've
think
had a
it's all about
second. Tell
perspective.
me, wealth is created always.
Yeah. Well, we
Definitively.
both agree on this. So I don't have an argument. Like,
Good.
yes, I definitely, I absolutely see it that way,
So there is no
because
such thing as a zero-sum game because
yeah,
wealth is always created. And if anyone listening to this has any way to disagree with me, I welcome you. Because what I thought you were going to say, Bill,
we're gonna get lit
is
up.
I thought you were going to say, well, sometimes like things
Well,
happen and, all of a sudden, like
things happen.
I buy your company and it doesn't matter. Like, even if my granddad leaves me millions of dollars, it was originally still created. I might
First of
have it
all,
now. Ownership of wealth can change, but the wealth itself was created.
I don't sound like that. Second of all,
All right. No zero sum game. Tell me, let's wrap this up.
well, I think before we wrap it, I think we need to transition this argument a little bit. So we're at this place where I think like the core of this episode, or the one thing that the one thing I would love people listening to kind of take away of
Hmm.
is
Takeaway. The
takeaway
takeaway.
is
I'll have one too.
okay. Um, this idea of an abundance mindset we've talked about instead of scarcity, and you were kind of alluding to this: the value that you put in the world will come back because it ripples out, and then the ripples, inevitably bounce back one way or the other. Maybe you have a better day because you gave money or you volunteered somewhere, as an easy example. But I think what we're kind of all dancing around with this, with abolishing zero sum as even a definition, even a thing, and with value being voluntary, or value being created because of voluntary transactions and because people find what's happening in that transaction valuable. Um, I think that only works if you have an abundance mindset, because you can only see these things down the line with an abundance mindset. Kind of like I was talking about, with my client that we were retirement planning for. Like, this is not all the money you're ever going to make in your entire life. In 2 weeks, you get paid again, and the game changes a little bit, not much, but a little bit. So, um, you kind of summed up the abundance mindset really, really well. Um, but I think it's all about perspective. Maybe there are no losers. in these transactions. Maybe wealth is always created. Maybe there's abundance everywhere, and it just depends on how you look at it. And I would encourage people, look at it our way. We're right. This is the correct way to live over here.
I would responding to that before I share my takeaway.
Yeah.
Is Bill, can you finish this in before you finish, pause so everybody listening can also finish this statement. The statement is, if you give, you will. Go ahead.
You want me to answer now?
No, yeah, that was long enough.
Receive.
If you give, you will receive. That is something we all know. Now, I ascribe to the faith that I ascribe to, and it's very, very important to me. Not everybody shares that faith. But if you're trying to figure out, well, how do I get into that abundant mindset? The law that has governed the world for a very long time, the evidence that exists in this world, is that if you want abundance, you give, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you practice gratitude.
Yeah.
Those are the two things. If you show up ready to give, you will receive.
Yeah.
And if you practice gratitude, you will pull people into you that are ready to receive from you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So practice giving, practice gratitude. That's how you create an abundance mindset. It's a muscle that we have to exercise. And no matter how much you muscle it, how much you exercise it, you're going to kind of fall back into these scarcity moments. And so if you're listening to this is my takeaway. If you're listening to this, I want you to challenge yourself. If you see if you're listening to this and you're like, oh no, zero to something that does exist. I'm experiencing this right now in my life, my business, my marriage, with my children. Like, zero sum game absolutely exists. I'm going to tell you this: if you're stuck there, you're scared, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're stuck, you're scared. What I want you to do, instead of trying to just figure it out or math it out or argue it, look at what's going on in your life and saying, where do I feel like I can't provide? I can't, provide for my family, provide for the ones I love, or I can't protect my family. I can't protect my business. I can't protect myself. Because if you're stuck in this mindset, or if this is existing in your life, you're just scared of something.
Yeah.
And then once you get honest and you hold yourself accountable, then we can crush that. We can solve some problems. And then you can get on a platform where all of a sudden now you can start exercising abundance mindset. But you can't do it if you can't feel safe. Right.
Yeah.
So, and if you need
say,
help doing that, I love helping people. That's my passion. Like, I want to get you unstuck. I want to make you unscared. And Bill, I know you'd work with people and do that too.
Yeah.
So,
well, I was just going to say too, remember that value is subjective. So like, if you feel stuck and you feel scared, try helping out somebody else with your time. Like, if money stresses you out and money's tight, giving your time is just, it could be more valuable depending on, the lives you touch and what it does for you,
Yeah. I run a men's group, and we last month came together in this is something that you can have $0. You can have -$, and you can do this and it will be helpful. And we talked about this before, so this isn't brand new, or it's not new, or I didn't create it, but just practice gratitude by waking up in the morning and writing down 3 things you're grateful for. If you do that for a month, you will have almost 100 things that you're grateful for that you can read through anytime you're feeling stuck or scared.
Mm-hmm.
That gratitude alone will start helping you break out of that fear and anxiety.
Yeah.
And it'll also help you put in perspective the things that are holding you back. And once you get to a point where you can kind of look through your problems in life and see them without being tied to fear and anxiety, you can start to make some real impactful decisions and start changing things that are actually keeping you unsafe, right? We can start being owners of our situation instead of victims of our situation.
Done deal, dude.
Dude, I really appreciate you kind of coming up with this idea, Bill. That was, I think it's, like I said, I think it resonates with everyone. I've been here before. We've all been here before. I'll be here again someday. And now I know that when I am, I'm just going to go turn on money therapy and hit this episode. If you know somebody that's feeling this way, they're having a rough go, share this episode with them. And hopefully, if nothing else, we gave you 2 pretty impactful takeaways, but if all they do is just open up a piece of paper and start writing down things they're grateful for, I bet that'll move the needle a little.
Yeah. Hopefully we helped in some way.
We just killed, oh, you couldn't see my fist there. We just killed the zero-sum game.
Zero-sum game. It's over.
It's over. All right. Put it to bed here.
See y'all next week.
Next week, guys. Thanks. We hope you learned something valuable today. We appreciate you including us in your journey towards financial betterment. It is important to us that you know this is for educational purposes only and not to be considered specific advice for any individual listener. If something we discussed is relevant to you and you have questions about how it might be uniquely applicable to you, please discuss that with a financial professional, or, of course, we are happy to have further conversations with you about your specific questions, needs, or circumstances. We welcome you to reach out to us via our website, harpethwealthpartners.com, or by emailing Brandan at bmc@harpethwealthpartners.com. Securities are offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice is offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and Harpeth Wealth Partners are separate entities from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not to be intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult appropriate qualified professionals prior to making a decision. Investing includes risk, including fluctuating prices and loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Hypothetical examples presented are not representative of any specific investments. Your results may vary. We want to thank you for your time, and we look forward to having you back next week.